Welcome to Amplifying Leadership, a podcast where we discuss all things leadership. My name is Tara Lehman, and I'm a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. For our leadership clients, I aim to provide effective leadership coaching, consulting, and workshops to help you build employees, retain great talent in your organizations, and help improve your bottom line. You can check it all out at amplifyingleadership.ca, which is a division of Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. Today, I am welcoming Pinky Ghadiali, founder, CEO, and superstar of Netwomen. For those who do not know, I did join Netwomen just as they were coming to Canada and the US late last year, and now I'm a part-time division director and facilitator for Netwomen in trucking and transportation. Thank you for joining me today, Pinky. I'm excited for our conversation. Of course, happy to be part of your Netwomen team.
Thanks, Tara. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your podcast now.
Yes. All right. So why don't we start with your leadership story, and especially as it's ever evolving right now into you have a much larger team. So why don't you kind of just walk us through how you got where you are today?
Wow. Where do I start? I think really it's going to be a long introduction, so I'll keep it nice and short for you.
Sounds good.
I started off starting university, studying optometry, and didn't really love it. It wasn't a passion of mine. And what I tended to do was attract patients in the testing room who would share their stories. And what I noticed was, and what many of my colleagues noticed was, that there was a space that I was creating for people where they could come and share their stories. And what I found was that they weren't just talking about their eyes. Often they were telling me a lot of things that they wouldn't normally share with other people. And I started asking my friends, my optometry friends, does this happen for you? And they all said no. And so it tended to be me that got that. And I realized that even before that, at school, and when I was at school, and friends would say, oh yeah, why don't you go and speak to Pinky, because she'll tell you what to do. But often I never really used to say anything. I just used to be that sounding board where people could just talk and I would listen. And I think that's a skill that many coaches have to learn.
Absolutely.
And it's really a skill that just felt like it was natural for me. And I just felt like it was something that I needed to continue. It was a passion of mine. And it was something that I just did without even realizing it. And you know, when people say, oh, when you've found your purpose, your mission in your life, you'll know. And that was really the point in my life where I was like, right, I need to be a coach. I have to be a counselor. I have to be a therapist, or something in that area where I was just naturally offering space. And so when I got divorced, it was my opportunity. So often things happen in your life that get you from where you are now to where you need to be, but often they're a stumbling block. And for me, the divorce was a catapult where I used the pain and turned it into power. And I often talk about this when I speak with clients who have experienced trauma or pain or change in their life, where they often don't know what to do with it. And I really found that space where, when I moved to Edinburgh, so I moved like 330 miles north of where I'm from, down in England. And because I fell in love with Edinburgh. And it was, that was 14 years ago, would you believe?
Oh, wow.
And,
time flies.
It does.
It does.
Really does. I haven't actually lived anywhere for this long before. So, it's a big chunk of my life being in the same place. And so I came up here with my son after my divorce. I met someone, fell in love with Edinburgh, and didn't fall in love with him. So that ended. I ended up being a single parent, and it's been a really interesting journey for me. I think, firstly, you never expect certain things in your life. Like,
Hmm.
no one really expects to be divorced and a single parent, do they? And
Hmm.
it happened. So it happened to me. And so I thought, right, I'm going to make use of this situation. I've hit rock bottom. I cannot go any further down. The only way is up now. And what am I going to do with my life? So it was a real turning point in my life in many ways, of not only finding my purpose, my joy, but also finding that I've got this gift that I've been using ever since. So that was 14 years ago. I really just went straight into, like, really went deep into personal
Hmm.
development. And it's changed my life for the better, because it's made me realize that there's more to life than just you. And there's more to life than, just the people that you are surrounding yourself with. There's other connections. Like, we're all connected. And it seems like a really odd thing to be thinking about at the time. But I think when you reflect on certain things, and particularly during COVID, I think was a real
Hmm.
kind of moment of, wow, we really are all in the same sea here. We're all just trying
Absolutely.
to swim, trying not to sink,
Yeah,
trying
exactly.
trying to make the best of what we have and with what we've got. And I mean, COVID really was the blessing for me, for Net Women, and for the evolving time that we went through. It's just been incredible. The journey has been, I mean, I couldn't be more thankful for it, quite honestly, because it came along in a time where I just thought, this is the worst possible time to start a business. How on earth am I going to start a business in this time? But actually, it really was, COVID was the turning point. So I started in February 2020. Net Women started because, firstly, because I was going to networking events, which were surrounded by white males in grey suits,
Mm,
which,
I've been there. Yes.
and it used to drive me insane. The number of times I stood at the door and just went, right, that's it. I'm walking out of this place. I'm not coming back. And I literally did that a few times at some networking events. And so I created my own groups in Edinburgh and Glasgow. And then since that's evolved. And so it went from that in person in 2015, then became Net Women Online in 2020. And then we adapted and grew and changed from the membership, from the coaching, the mentoring, the collaborations that we did every month, to then what we have now, which is, it's really exciting, because we now have
Yes.
you, and we have a team of incredible women who are way better than me.
I feel the same way too sometimes. I think we all like bring
Yeah,
something to the table that is they're very strong women in this team that you're leading.
very. I mean, incredible women, better than me in many ways, and what I do. And, I am here to support and lead, but leading to me is very much serving, right? All I
Hmm.
do is serve. That is my whole outlook on leadership. And if I can help my team get successful, that means I'm doing the right thing. And I often get asked that, I some of the team members have asked me that.
Hmm.
And that is, what is it that you see in a leader? What is it that you expect, in a CEO of a company? And I think really for me, it's, you cannot stop serving, because the team that we have now is so strong, and I have to nurture the strength and help women and leaders grow to be their own leader. And
Hmm.
that is the only way that our business is going to be that big organization that I see it as, and to help 1 million people in the next 5 years is a massive mission, massive undertaking, but actually, and in fact, it does scare me a little bit when I say it, but I love it. And I love the thought impacting so many people around the world.
I love that too. I think, that's why you and I got drawn together. We didn't actually meet the way most people have been meeting through job placements, etc. It was just a chance meeting, and we resonated so well together. I also see myself as more of the servant leadership. Actually, one of my previous managers actually put that in a recommendation that I'm more service leadership based when it comes to leading. And I think you and I just resonated so well because of how similar we are on those types of things. Not just because we're both coaches, but because we have similar personalities when it comes to people. And by the way, I have to commend you for using all your obstacles and all those walls put in your place and crushing through them, by the way. I think that is impressive and what everybody needs to do. Like, if you hit rock bottom, remember there's always a way up, around, under, or through that wall in front of you. And that is a great way to lead as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you haven't experienced that in your life, then you must have been hiding under a rock because
Exactly. Yeah, it happens. It happens at
yeah,
work. It happens at home.
it
So
totally is.
I have to ask, because we, of course, work with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you're more focused on tech, me, trucking, transportation. What do you see are the biggest obstacles that you're facing when you are either coaching your clients in the tech industry or, doing some of these trainings? What do you see as the biggest obstacles for leadership right now?
I mean, where that is a massive question. It's a
It
loaded
is.
question.
It's very loaded. If you
I
could
think,
pick a key aspect, how's that?
yeah, I think really for me, it's the first point of call, which is how do we speak to leaders in the way that they understand what DEI is often.
I
There's a
agree.
lot of around there's that fear around DEI. Am I doing the right thing? Am I saying the right thing? Well, if we get involved in this, then do we have to do something else? And what is it that it entails? And there's a lot of misinformation, miscommunication, and also the fact that there's a fear around am I allowed to say this? Am I even allowed to do this? And I think that's where Netwomen comes in. That's how we help organize. In fact, it's funny. It's almost ironic that people are struggling with these things, but they're not they're not actually acknowledging that they need the help to overcome them. And that's how we can help in many ways to help them overcome those obstacles. But
I
I
agree.
think mainly all leaders, it doesn't matter what industry or sector it is, no matter what, I mean, you'll know this from trucking and transportation, that, every single leader out there, the majority of people we are speaking to are white men.
Correct.
And it's actually being able to speak their language to be able to break through, to be able to talk to them in a way that they understand. And often, sadly, it really is just about the bottom line. And they're really not bothered about diversity, inclusion, or any of this sustainable future part of the ESG that many of the corporate social responsibility is put on them. It's not about any of that. It really is sometimes just a tick box, just to say that they've done it and to look good. And often websites, you look at websites and they've got people of color all over the website, and then you go deeper into the company and you see that actually it's just heavily male dominant still, white male dominant. And that's my concern, is that really the way that we want to work with companies? No, we actually want to make actual change. And that's what we've been talking about so much, is action creates progress. Without action, we're not going to get any progress. So how are we going to bridge that gap, which is what Netwomen does, from where we are now, which is probably less than 10% females at the top, or people of color, which is even worse, to the 50-50, which is really representative of the population, right? It's actually 51%, but let's just give that 1% and call it 50-50.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And how do we get there? And it's not just females and males. I'm talking about all the underrepresented groups.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's that understanding. And I know there's younger leaders out there who are really passionate about this. And I think with higher education and what we're doing right now with Netwomen and speaking to universities and alumni and
Hmm.
graduate schemes, etc., that will be a real door for us.
I think so too. I agree. I think it's getting that younger generation into wanting to do, and you're right, they're going to be taught these things and they want these things. So that younger generation will eventually help. But in industries like mine, which they're still an older generation, it takes a lot of energy to get those young people in and to want to do these things. So it's a challenge. I do want to come right back to something you said though, about the checkbox. It's just, in Canada, we have some laws here that you have to meet certain things. Federally is a little bit stronger than, when it comes to the provinces, but some companies have those policies and procedures out there so they can say that they're leading using DEI when really that's all they do. They write a policy procedure and hope somebody does something with it. So I see that as also a concern when it comes to leadership, that they may not be properly understanding, trained, maybe misunderstanding, as you mentioned earlier, as well when it comes to something like DEI.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot for, I get it. Organizations have got a lot to deal with.
Yeah,
That
they do. Yeah.
absolutely, no doubt about it, that they've got different priorities. They've got, like you say, policies and procedures in place. It's all written down, but what are they actually doing? That's my
Exactly.
always, I always come back to this. And, my whole thing is, unless you are doing what exactly are you changing? And that is my whole thing around everything I do. I think so. In fact, it's one of my whole categories for my team as well. I know that we've taken on a team of people, but I want a team that's going to be creating progress and action, which is
Absolutely.
week on week we meet, we talk about what we've done, we hold each other accountable, we support each other within other communities and groups that we have on the side. We share our knowledge, our ideas, best practices. And I think really that is the only way to create, there's many other ways to do things like team meetings and team, fun things and events, which we haven't quite got there yet. But we are hoping to do things like that, retreats where we can come together and we can have, inspirational speakers and people
Hmm.
that talk about wellness as a whole. I am absolutely sure that unless an organization looks at all of these areas and looks at wellness and all the things around coaching and about developing their leaders,
Hmm.
they're just going to be stuck in the dark ages and they're going to become dinosaurs. And that is the worry, isn't it? For all these
Hmm.
industries, including trucking transportation, let's say that's been around for a very long time.
Yep.
And like you said, you're dealing with dinosaurs, you're dealing with people who speak a completely different language to these people that are coming out of university right now. And it's how can they then communicate their knowledge to the older generations? And then how can the older generations communicate their language to the younger generations? Often that divide is so difficult to,
Very.
yeah.
Like all those generations that are now in companies, from the baby boomers working still to those young ones who are 18 coming out of school. And how do they talk to each other so they actually appreciate and understand each other? Which brings me to the question of communication. I mean, communication is my favorite topic when it comes to leadership because I am open book, I'm open topic, I'm open door. When I led, it was, what do you need to know? I will find an answer. So the listening aspect that you mentioned earlier is the biggest piece of communication for me, is that deep or active listening, so that you can be understanding what other people need. They can feel included and welcome, which of course goes to what we do with Netwomen, is that inclusivity part as well. What would you say is your key takeaway on communication for leaders?
I would say I would go with what you're saying about active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Active listening is a skill that, as a leader, without that, you're not leading. You're not
100%
listening.
agree. Yeah.
I literally had a conversation with somebody last week, went for a coffee, and she's been in this company for 6 months. And she said to me, I have tried and tried. We all have tried. We talked to them at the board. They're just not listening. And now I want to leave. One of the major problems that companies have is that people just don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
They
100%.
might hear what you're saying, but they're not taking it in. They're not proactively then going, okay, we need to do something about this. Let's take some action and create some progress. There is no follow-on.
Mm-hmm.
Then the person who's voiced whatever they need to say at the meeting will feel like they are unheard, undervalued,
Yes.
and unseen, and then they want to leave. Those three things are really dangerous for any company, because people will just go if they are not being heard, because then you immediately start feeling disrespected
Mm-hmm.
and undervalued. So you're thinking, well, what's the point of me being here?
Yep,
And
exactly.
that is the problem we have when we're not speaking the same language. I don't mean English and Spanish. I mean English, but in a way that is not understood. So there's so many different ways of expressing yourself and saying something. And this is one of the classic things that I see between men and women. Mansplaining is my favorite.
I love it. I've heard of it before too, and it's, yeah.
I mean, women say something, right, at the table, whatever it might be. Okay, I think we need to do this because it will help this area of our communication and this will help our bottom line. Then the man will say it exact same thing, but in a different way. And then you get the executive of the board going, yes, that's a brilliant idea. And then you're sitting there as a woman going, I just literally said that
Yeah,
5 seconds ago.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It happens. It happens, and that's why we're here, right? We're here with Netwomen to change that and move things forward. And I love communication topic. I mean, it's massive. So maybe we'll have another conversation another time about other ones. But I'm wondering, what do you think would be your key takeaway for leaders today, when it comes either to communication or, actually, let's do this. Why don't you let me know what the key takeaway is? And you now have a brand new company with a brand new team that you're leading. What is your key takeaway for those people who are doing that or trying to do something like that, Pinky?
It's a really good question. And you know what? I'm going to obviously listen to this again in 6 months' time and listen to what I've said, because
Yeah.
every minute counts right now. You know, whatever we're doing, it's just been so inspirational. I'm literally inspired every single day whenever I speak to one of my team. And that's, I think, I suppose one of the reasons why I've taken you on, but also it reminds me every day how grateful I am to have so many inspiring women around me who champion each other. And actually, I feel like we're getting somewhere. I actually feel like we're moving the needle on this. on DEI, on equity for women. I know we're like apparently 136 years away from equality, but the whole idea of creating that space for people, and I really feel like I always lead with empathy, with love, and with compassion. And I know that they're so feminist, those values, but for me, that is the only way to sustain a genuine socially impact driven business. And I think that any business and any CEO, if you're starting a business, you just started it and you're thinking, what are your values? How do you place yourself as a leader? I would say that those three things, you need them. You need them to survive. You need them to adapt. They are the core for anything that you do, because if you can't do anything in life without those three things. I don't know if that answers your question. I feel
It
like
absolutely does. I was just talking to someone yesterday about the fact that even leaders are human. And so having those emotions so that they understand when communicating and you understand when you're trying to be understood, having those emotions is important. Empathy is a huge one, right? Having those emotions must be there. We are human. We're not robots, right? So I agree with you on all of that, and servant leadership also shows a lot of that. The empathy comes out, right? So I agree with you.
amazing. Yeah, we need more companies like that, definitely.
And I know that, with Netwomen, we're going to nudge that from 136 years a little bit closer to, maybe we can't do it in 50, but we're going to nudge that back. I promise. That's what we're going to do. I love being part of the team. I love your leadership. You're very encouraging and you do listen so well to us. If there's something that is a challenge, that team meeting we have is amazing to hear what was working for other people. And I appreciate that 100%. So,
I love having you on the team, Tara.
oh, thanks, Pinky. So why don't you let us know how people could get in touch with Netwomen in Europe and Netwomen in the US?
There's a few ways. We are very present on LinkedIn, so you can follow our company page, Netwomen. We've also got, if you want more interaction, want to know more about us at a deeper level, we've got a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging group on LinkedIn as well, which you can find us on there. And also you can find out more about our membership on netwomen.co.co, or you can find out about our DEI programs and what we're delivering and what Tara's doing as well on netwomen.us.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and all that great advice today.
Thank you so much, Tara. It's been a pleasure. I've absolutely loved it. Thank you.
Thank you for my listeners very much for your time today. And as always, I hope you found at least one key takeaway from today's episode. If you're in need of some leadership coaching, consulting, or workshops, or want to be a guest on this podcast, then please reach out to me at tara@twinlifecoaching.ca. To find out more about my leadership services, please visit amplifyingleadership.ca, a Twin Life Coaching and Business Services division. Until next time, please be safe and be an amazing leader or leader to be.